This is Professor Joe, your education advocate. I will be sharing with you the narrative of a case study for student discussion and analysis in metaphysics and form part of the study of philosophy entitled Star Trek: The Next Generation, The Measure of Man, Episode 35, written by Melinda Snodgrass and directed by Robert Shearer, first aired February 13th, 1989. This narrative can be located on the Star Trek: The Next Generation DVD Season 2, Disc #3. All quotes are from this episode. Let me start by telling you this narrative. Most of us know that the television series Star Trek was about a starship, the Enterprise, whose mission was to explore the galaxy. This ship was part of a larger organization known as Starfleet. Serving as a lieutenant commander on board the ship was an android named Data. Data was an extremely advanced and unique android, even by the standards of 24th century science. He had a special processor known as a positronic brain that allowed him to mimic human behavior extremely accurately. As a result, not only could he process information at lightning speed and arrive at rational conclusions, but he also seemed to have desires, interests, and inclinations. He could formulate relationships and make free choices. In this episode, Commander Bruce Maddox, a member of the Scientific Research Division of Starfleet, arrives on board the Enterprise with orders for Data to be transferred to him to be disassembled to learn more about it. Maddox refers to Data as it, not him, throughout the entire episode. His ultimate goal is to create an army of androids like Data, which can serve the needs of Starfleet in space exploration. When Data learns that Maddox cannot reassemble him, he refuses to submit to the orders. Captain Picard, the commanding officer of Enterprise and Data, supports him. Picard argues that as an officer in the Enterprise, Data has rights. Among them, the right to refuse to undergo an experimental procedure such as this. However, Picard has been unsuccessful in getting the transfer orders rescinded, so Data resigns from Starfleet. Maddox takes legal action with the local JAG, Judge Advocate General officer, challenging Data's resignation and arguing that Data is not a person with a right to resign, but being a machine, it is the property of Starfleet. He argues, would you permit the computer of the Enterprise to refuse a refit? Going on to claim that Picard's reaction is emotional and irrational. You are endowing Data with human characteristics because it looks human, but it is not. If it were a box on wheels, I would not be facing this opposition. The JAG officer concurs with Maddox and rules that Data is the property of Starfleet and cannot resign or refuse to cooperate. Picard requests a hearing to challenge the ruling and is placed in the position of being the defending attorney for Data. At the same time, his senior officer, Commander Riker, is given the unenviable job of prosecuting attorney. Riker opens his case by having Data define an android as an automaton made to resemble a human being. Riker emphasizes automaton and resembles. After demonstrating Data's abilities as a machine, Riker summarizes his argument. The commander is a physical representation of a dream, an idea conceived of by a man's mind. Its purpose to serve human needs and interests. It's a collection of neural nets and heuristic algorithms. Elaborate software written by a man dictates its response. It's hardware built by a man, and now a man will shut it off. With that, Riker reaches behind Data and turns the switch that shuts him down, say, Pinocchio is broken. His strings have been cut. During a recess in the proceedings, Picard consults with Guinan, a wise alien on board the Enterprise, and becomes convinced that the real issue in this case is creating a race of Data to be enslaved to do man's bidding. He believes this issue has been obscured behind a comfortable, easy euphemism property and is determined to challenge that thinking. In his opening defense, Picard acknowledges that Data is a machine, but comments that this is irrelevant. We too are machines, just machines of a different type. He also acknowledges that as Data was created by humans, so are we. Children are created from the building blocks of their parents' DNA. Are they property? He then asks Data a series of questions demonstrating that, like any person, He has wants and desires, values things, and forms deep personal relationships. Picard then calls Maddox to the stand and asks for the definition of a sentient being. Maddox offers three criteria: intelligence, self-awareness, and consciousness. Picard asks Maddox to prove to the court that I am sentient. When Maddox claims that Picard's sentience is obvious, Picard asks what the difference is between himself and Data. Maddox replies that Picard is self-aware. He acknowledges the first criteria of Data's intelligence and defines self-awareness as conscious of your existence and actions. You are aware of yourself and your ego. Picard turns to Data and asks him what he is currently doing. Data replies, I am taking part in a legal hearing to determine my rights and status. Am I a person or property? When asked what is at stake, he replies, my right to choose, perhaps my very life. Picard points out how often Data refers to himself in his reply. My rights, my status, my right to choose, my life. He seems reasonably self-aware to me. He then asks Maddox, what if Data can fulfill the last criteria, consciousness in even the smallest degree? What is he then? Do you know? He asks the same question of Riker and the JAG officer and says, Starfleet was founded to seek out new life. Well, there it sits. Picard argues that if we create an army of Datas to do man's bidding, thousands of Datas become a race. Won't we be judged by how we treat that race? After considering the arguments, the JAG officer makes her final ruling. It sits there looking at me and I don't know what it is. This case has dealt with metaphysics, with questions best left to saints and philosophers. I am neither competent nor qualified to answer those, but I've got to make a ruling to speak to the future. Is Data a machine? Yes. Is he the property of Starfleet? No. We have been dancing around the basic issue. Does Data have a soul? I don't know that he has. I don't know what I have, but I have got to give him the freedom to explore that question himself. It is the ruling of this court that Lieutenant Commander Data has the right to choose. Data exercises his right to refuse the procedure, encouraging Maddox to continue his research. Maddox agrees to rescind his transfer request, commenting about Data, saying, he's remarkable. What do you think is this narrative? We can formulate several metaphysical problems from the story. First, what is your judgment on Data, the android, and who has the capacity of a human person? Is he a person or a machine? What is the mark of a person? What is the mark of a machine? Second, can appearance affect your judgment about Data? Since he looks like you and me, would that influence one's view of him? What if Data looks like a horse? Would the controversy exist? Third, the JAG officer granted Data the right to choose. Was that the right decision for Data? Do you think robots have the right to choose? Lastly, if you are to judge what a robot should look like, would you recommend human-like robots or something else? Do you suggest having humanoid robots who look like any of us working with us or driving cars like any human being around? Thanks for watching. Please promote my advocacy. Follow, like, and share my channel.